The stars stretched endlessly, an eternal canvas of light and shadow. Captain Nathan Grayson stood on the bridge of the USS Resolute, arms crossed, his expression as steely as the reinforced hull of his ship. The emergency beacon had come hours ago, a scrambled transmission from the distant Kelvari system. The message was garbled, but one thing was clear: someone or something had unleashed hell, and it was heading toward human space. Grayson's voice carried a quiet authority. Harris, status on the signal analysis. Lieutenant Michael Tex. Harris leaned over his console, a smirk flickering beneath his sharp features. Got most of it unscrambled, Cap. It's bad news. Kelvaris is gone. Fleet strength unknown, but these boys don't play nice. Tex always had a way of downplaying disaster, but even he couldn't hide the tension in his tone. The Deathworlders were a legend whispered in alien circles, beings evolved from planets that would crush most species. Now, they weren't just myth. They were a threat screaming toward humanity's fragile foothold in the galaxy. "We've got a job to do, then," Grayson said, his calm masking the fire beneath. "Dr. McCoy, anything in the archives about these Deathworlders?" Dr. Ethan McCoy, the ship's xenologist, adjusted his glasses, the faint blue glow of his tablet illuminating his furrowed brow. "Only fragments. Multiple species, unified under some kind of hive mind AI. Their biology is optimized for survival in hostile environments, high-gravity planets, toxic atmospheres, that sort of thing. If they're moving as a fleet, they've adapted their technology to match." Sergeant Jake Malone, standing by the viewport, snorted. "So, they're tough. Doesn't mean they can't bleed." Grayson allowed himself a thin smile. Malone's gruff demeanor was as solid as his combat record. A Marine who'd seen the worst and kept walking. If anyone could hold the line against impossible odds, it was Malone. Tex spun his chair around, his eyes bright with mischief. "I like the optimism, but their ships are packing enough firepower to turn us into space dust. Any bright ideas, Cap?" Grayson stared at the holographic display in front of him, a representation of the Kelvari system, now silent. The Deathworlders weren't just moving, they were hunting. If humanity didn't act fast, Earth's colonies would be next. "We're intercepting them at the Kepler asteroid belt," Grayson said, his voice cutting through the room. "Tex, I want every rock in that belt rigged to blow. McCoy, figure out what makes their hive mind tick and how we can break it. Malone, prep the strike teams. This isn't just a fight for survival. It's a chance to prove we're not the easy prey they think we are." The bridge crew snapped into action. The USS Resolute accelerated toward the asteroid field, a knife hurtling into the void. Hours later, the team gathered in the war room. The display showed a swarm of red markers, Deathworlder ships, closing in on their position. McCoy leaned forward, his voice tense. "Their hive mind AI coordinates their fleet in real time. It's like fighting one giant organism. If we can disrupt its communication, we can force them to fight like individuals." "Easier said than done," Malone grumbled. "How do we disrupt something we barely understand?" Tex grinned, his Texan drawl thick. "Simple. We don't fight fair. These aliens think they're smarter than us. Let's show them what good old human ingenuity looks like." The plan was set. Lure the Deathworlders into the asteroid belt, use Tex's improvised explosives to create chaos, and exploit the confusion to disable their lead ships. It was risky, but the alternative was unthinkable. When the Deathworlder fleet arrived, the Resolute was ready. The enemy ships moved like a school of predators, their sleek black hulls blending into the void. Grayson's voice cut through the tension. "Engage!" Explosions rippled through the asteroid field, shards of rock and metal scattering like shrapnel. Tex's traps detonated with pinpoint precision, forcing the Deathworlder ships into tight clusters. Malone's strike teams, piloting heavily armed drones, darted through the chaos, targeting weak points in the enemy formation. At first, it seemed to work. The Deathworlders faltered, their hive mind struggling to adapt. But then, the swarm recalibrated. Ships shifted with eerie synchronicity, avoiding traps and counterattacking with brutal efficiency. "Damn it," Tex muttered, his hands flying across his console. "They're learning too fast." Grayson's jaw tightened. Pull back. Regroup at the fallback point. The Resolute retreated, its engines burning bright against the darkness. On the bridge, silence hung heavy. McCoy broke it. They're not invincible, but they're not like anything we've faced before. If we don't find a way to outthink them, this was just round one. Grayson nodded, his gaze steely. Then we'll adapt, just like we always do. As the ship sped towards safety, the crew knew the battle was far from over. But if the Deathworlders thought humanity would crumble under pressure, they were about to learn a lesson the hard way. The hum of the USS Resolute's engines was a constant reminder of their retreat. For hours, the ship moved in silence, the crew tense but resolute. Grayson stood at the head of the war room, eyes scanning the holographic display of the Deathworlder fleet. They had been bloodied, but not broken, and their hive mind was likely already analyzing every move the humans had made. Dr. McCoy's voice broke the stillness. I've been studying the data we pulled from the battle. The hive mind isn't just a tactical network. It's an extension of their physiology. It coordinates them at a biological level, processing every input from their ships and soldiers as if it's a single organism. That's why they're so damn fast. Tex interjected, pacing the room. It's not 50 ships making 50 decisions. It's one mind controlling them all. A computer with no hesitation, no human errors. Grayson leaned on the table, his voice measured. Which makes it their strength and their weakness. If we can disrupt the hive mind, even for a moment, we might be able to throw them into chaos. Disrupt how? Malone asked, his tone skeptical. We don't even know how it communicates. We might not need to, McCoy said, tapping his tablet. The hive mind relies on perfect information transfer. Introduce a single corrupt signal into the network, and it could propagate like a virus. But we need a delivery system, and a way to keep them from adapting immediately. Grayson's lips twitched in the faintest hint of a smile. That's where human creativity comes in. Tex, I want you working with McCoy on that virus. Malone, start training the strike teams for unconventional boarding tactics. If we're going to disable the hive mind, we'll need boots on their ships. Malone crossed his arms, a grim determination in his eyes. It's a suicide mission if they see us coming. Then we won't give them the chance, Grayson said. This is about creating confusion. Hit them where they don't expect, and keep hitting until they can't adapt fast enough. For the next 2 days, the Resolute became a hive of its own. In the engineering bay, Tex and McCoy worked tirelessly, combining Tex's knack for improvisation with McCoy's deep knowledge of alien biology. Their weapon was a hybrid, a data burst encoded with microscopic biological agents designed to hijack the hive mind's processing power. Tex leaned back, wiping sweat from his brow. This'll either fry their circuits or make them angrier. No middle ground. McCoy adjusted his glasses, his voice calm but firm. It'll work. The question is whether we can keep them off balance long enough for it to matter. In the hangar, Malone drilled his men relentlessly, refining tactics for infiltrating the Deathworlder ships. They would use small, untraceable craft, slipping past the fleet's defenses in the chaos created by the virus. Each Marine knew the odds, but not one hesitated. On the bridge, Grayson monitored every detail, his mind racing through scenarios. He knew they were betting everything on this gambit. If it failed, Earth's colonies would burn. When the Resolute finally intercepted the Deathworlder fleet, the crew was ready. The alien ships loomed in the distance, their sleek forms a stark contrast to humanity's more utilitarian designs. The hive mind's presence was almost palpable, a predatory intelligence scanning for any weakness. Virus delivery system is online, Tex reported, his voice steady despite the tension. Strike team standing by, Malone added. Grayson nodded, his tone calm. Begin Phase 1. The Resolute launched a barrage of quantum chaff, hundreds of decoys designed to mimic human ships. The Deathworlders responded instantly, their formation shifting to engage the Phantom fleet. In the chaos, Tex activated the virus, transmitting it through a disguised data stream. The effect was immediate. Enemy ships hesitated, their movements disjointed. For the first time, the perfect synchronization of the hive mind faltered. Looks like they're choking on it, Tex said, grinning. Don't get comfortable, Grayson warned. They'll adapt. And adapt they did. Within minutes, the Deathworlders began isolating the corrupted signals, rerouting their systems. But the delay was enough for Malone's strike teams to launch. Small, stealthy craft darted through the chaos, breaching enemy hulls with surgical precision. Malone led the first wave, his pulse rifle steady as he and his men stormed the alien corridors. The interior of the Deathworlder ships was a labyrinth of shifting walls and organic machinery, but Malone's instincts kept them one step ahead. Set the charges, he barked, covering his men as they rigged the hive mind's relay nodes with explosives. The Deathworlders fought back with ferocity, their towering forms a nightmarish blend of muscle and machine. Malone's team took losses, but their training held. Every charge they planted was another blow to the hive mind's ability to recover. Back on the Resolute, Grayson watched the battle unfold, his jaw clenched. Prepare phase 2. We hit them hard and fast. The ship's railguns roared to life, targeting the now fragmented fleet. Without the hive mind's perfect coordination, the Deathworlders struggled to respond. In the thick of it, Malone detonated the final charge. The ship he and his men were on shuddered violently as the relay nodes exploded, severing the vessel from the hive mind's control. Extraction now, Malone shouted, his team racing back to their craft as the alien ship began to collapse. The Resolute pulled the strike teams back, its engines flaring as it retreated to a safe distance. The Deathworlder fleet, once a seamless predator, now resembled a wounded beast, thrashing blindly. As the last of Malone's team boarded, Tex turned to Grayson, his grin triumphant. We did it, Cap. They're in shambles. Grayson didn't smile. This was just a battle. They'll regroup, and next time, they'll be ready for this. McCoy stepped forward, his expression somber. He's right. The hive mind is resilient. If we don't strike the killing blow soon, they'll evolve past every trick we have. Grayson nodded, his gaze hard. Then we'll make sure the next strike is the last. The Resolute moved back into the shadows, its crew battered but determined. The fight wasn't over, but humanity had bought itself time, a chance to prove that even in the face of impossible odds, they would find a way to survive. The USS Resolute emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the Sol system, its hull scarred but its resolve unbroken. Captain Nathan Grayson stood at the bridge, his eyes fixed on the incoming Deathworlder fleet, displayed on the central holographic array. The enemy ships moved with renewed purpose, their formations tighter, more precise. The hive mind had adapted, as Grayson had known it would. We're out of time, Dr. Ethan McCoy said, his voice low but urgent. The hive mind has compensated for the virus. They're moving more efficiently than ever. Tex Harris leaned against the rail, his ever-present grin replaced by a grim scowl. Yeah, but they're cocky now. That's our angle, Cap. Grayson nodded, his expression unreadable. Cocky, yes. Invincible, no. If they want to test the limits of their hive mind, we'll give them something they've never faced, a weapon they can't outthink. The crew turned their attention to him, waiting. They had followed Grayson through every impossible scenario so far, and he hadn't failed them yet. We use the sun, Grayson said simply. A stunned silence followed. Tex let out a low whistle. You're not serious. Dead serious, Grayson replied. We lure their fleet into the sun's corona and trigger a controlled solar flare. Their hive mind might be fast, but it can't rewrite the laws of physics. McCoy adjusted his glasses, his mind already racing. It's plausible. Their ships are designed for hostile environments, but nothing can withstand a direct solar event of that magnitude. The question is how we deliver the bait without getting ourselves fried. Grayson gestured to the tactical display. We'll use their arrogance. They'll see us as prey trying to hide, not as a threat. We deploy decoy drones into the corona and make them think we're hiding there. Once they commit, we trigger the flare. Sergeant Jake Malone, leaning against the bulkhead, crossed his arms. And if they don't take the bait, they will, Grayson said with certainty. The hive mind doesn't just want to win. It wants to dominate. They'll follow us to the gates of hell if it means ending the threat. Preparations began immediately. Tex and McCoy worked furiously to program the decoy drones with realistic human signatures, while Malone drilled his Marines for the possibility of boarding actions if the Deathworlders discovered the trap. Grayson, meanwhile, studied the tactical maps, refining the timing of the operation down to the second. When the Deathworlder fleet arrived, the Resolute was already in position. The enemy ships spread out like a swarm of locusts, their black hulls absorbing the light of the distant sun. "Decoys are live," Tex reported, his hands flying over the controls. "They're broadcasting human fleet signatures at full power." Grayson watched the holographic display as the Deathworlders shifted their formation, converging on the decoys. The hive mind, for all its brilliance, was predictable in its need to eliminate perceived threats. "They're taking the bait," McCoy said, a note of awe in his voice. "Hold steady," Grayson ordered. "Wait until they're fully committed." The minutes stretched into eternity as the Deathworlder fleet moved closer to the sun, their ships maneuvering with unnerving precision. Sweat beaded on Tex's brow as he monitored the decoys, ensuring their signals remained convincing. "Now," Grayson commanded. The Resolute launched a salvo of probes into the sun's outer layer, each one packed with devices designed to destabilize the star's magnetic field. The effect was immediate. The corona began to ripple and swell, a warning sign of the impending solar flare. The Deathworlder fleet hesitated, their formation faltering as the hive mind calculated the risk. But before they could withdraw, Tex activated a secondary wave of decoys, each one broadcasting a critical vulnerability in its signal. "They're committing," Tex said, a trace of triumph returning to his voice. The Deathworlders surged forward, their ships closing in on the decoys like predators smelling blood. "Trigger the flare," Grayson ordered. McCoy's fingers danced over his console, and the probes detonated in unison. The sun erupted with a violent brilliance, sending a wave of superheated plasma racing outward. The Deathworlder fleet, caught in the blast, disintegrated almost instantly, their ships reduced to molten debris. On the bridge of the Resolute, a cheer went up as the crew watched the display. The invincible hive mind had been undone by the very arrogance it relied upon. But the moment of triumph was short-lived. "Incoming transmission," Tex said, his voice suddenly serious. Grayson turned to the comm station. "From whom?" Tex glanced at the screen, his expression grim. "It's not human. It's them." The crew froze as the holographic display shifted, revealing an alien figure. Its form was grotesque, a twisted amalgamation of flesh and machine, its voice a deep, guttural growl. "You have delayed the inevitable," it said, "but you cannot destroy the hive. We will return, and next time, there will be no escape." The transmission ended abruptly, leaving the bridge in silence. Grayson's jaw tightened, his gaze hard. "Let them come. Humanity doesn't just adapt, we evolve, and we'll be ready for whatever they bring." As the Resolute turned back toward Earth, the crew knew their victory was only the beginning. The Deathworlders were a foe unlike any other. But if their enemies thought humanity would cower in fear, they were sorely mistaken. Grayson and his crew had proven one thing beyond doubt. Humanity would fight, innovate, and survive. And when the Deathworlders returned, they would find Earth waiting, with a vengeance.